What up, what up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Moedotj and we are locked in. Today we have a recap of the 688. It's a historical movie by Tyler Perry on Netflix about the only African American Army battalion to actually serve in World War II. Now, the description of this movie says 855th women joined the war to fix a 3-year backlog of undelivered mail. Faced with discrimination and a country devastated by war, they managed to short 17 million pieces of mail ahead of time. Now, during the war, the soldiers, they weren't getting their mail. And one thing you know about being a military member, if you're deployed, you get care packages, you're able to write your family, because sometimes that's the only communication you have. And these women went over there and they fixed it. They had a 6-month deadline, but they actually got it done in 90 days. But before we jump into this and I break this down, if you like historical shows like this, if you're a fan of Tyler Perry, this movie right here, I definitely recommend it. I love history, and this is something I didn't know anything about. And I will be breaking down all of the main characters to who they were in real life. But if you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell so you get something every time I upload. Make sure you hit that like button. And I'm on that road to 75,000 subscribers, so I appreciate each and every one of you. But let's go ahead and jump into it. This is the recap of the 688 on Netflix. We are anxious for you to know that we want to be and insist upon being considered a part of our American democracy, not something apart from it. Mary McLeod Bethune. We start the movie off in December 1943, almost 2 years to the date after America joined the war with the bombing of Pearl Harbor from the Japanese. Now, World War II was primarily fought on the European front, Northern Africa, and of course there were some Pacific battles, but primarily it was in Europe. And here we have the Americans holding down the lines against the Nazis, and they're getting ready to push, and it's an all-out war. Now, what we see here is a gentleman that was flying a plane over the battle. He ends up getting shot down. The medic comes over and pulls him out. He sees that he's unalived, and he drags him away, but the other soldiers saying, we need to go down, because they are in a battle, and you need to tend to those that are wounded before you go for the bodies that are unalived. But he does find a piece of mail, and it has a lot of blood on it. But he takes this letter because this is the last letter and the last line of communication that whoever this person is had. Take it back a year to 1942. We see some kids getting released from school, and there's a young lady of color by the name of Lena, and she's coming out to the car. And there's a white guy by the name of Abram, and he's waiting on her. But of course, this is the 1940s and segregation is big, and no one really wants to see interracial couples. So there's a white girl that gets in between them talking about, Abram, you're making a fool and a mockery of all of us. And you can tell that Abram and Lena, they're kind of close to each other. Shaking Mary up, Abram puts her in the back of the car, and him and Lena, they ride through the city, and he's taking her to the house. Now remember, this is the 40s, so people are looking at them a little side-eyed because he's driving into a black neighborhood, and he is a white guy. And when they get there, even Lena is saying, you know, you shouldn't be dropping me off over here. People's gonna look at you funny. And he's like, why? I don't care. So you can tell that he's really interested in her. She is too, but coming from a black family, she knows to be a little bit cautious. Lena's mother comes outside and sees her out there with Abram. She tells him to come in the house. Now, Abram, he's a nice young man. He says, hey, Miss Derekite. She's like, hey, Abram. But she tells her to get in this house and to be cautious of riding around with that white boy. But when she gets inside, her friend is in here, and they are talking about what's the plan for Lena after she finished school. And that's for her to go to university, go to college, get a degree, and move on, but stay far away from Abram. And we know that Abram, he's joining the army. Now later on that night, Lena and her family, they have to go and work for Abram's family. This is how they make some money. They go over there and serve them, because you got to remember, at this time there wasn't too much education going around for colored folk, so they were cooking and doing, you know, different type of services for people. And Abram's family, because we find out he's Jewish, is having a birthday party, and it's low-key going away. Now him and Lena, they end up outside. And of course, he's finally admitting to her that he likes her, and he tells her to give him a kiss. Now she's nervous about this because she is supposed to be working, but it's his party and he doesn't care what anyone thinks. So they kiss each other. He sings to her a little bit, and he's telling her when he goes to the army, he's going to write her. We see a lady in a rural area going down to the mailbox. She's waiting on the postman, US mail, to show up. Now, when the truck shows up, she asks, is there anything from her sons? Meaning her sons are over in the military and she's waiting on them to write her back. But she hasn't seen anything from him. He's like, sorry, ma'am, I haven't. So, of course, the family, they want to know what is going on. This isn't 2024. This is 1942. And there's no internet. There's no sending back a text message. The only way to communicate is through mail, which might already take a month to get there and back. The next time we see Lena, she's coming into the house. Her mother's sitting on the couch, and they tell Lena to come on into the living room, and they hand her an envelope. And when she opens up this envelope, she begins to cry because it's the United States Army letting her know that Abram had died. The gentleman that was in the plane with the bloody letter, that was Abram. He passed away in the war. So now she's in bed. She's not talking to anybody. She can't sleep. She can't eat. She's hurting because she never got a letter from him. He's only been gone a short while. This causes Lena to get up one night and finally decide to tell her mom she's made the decision. She's joining the Army after she graduates from school. Now, she was in class and they were talking about it, talking about women joining the Army, the WAC, Woman Army Corps. And her mom is like, no, you're going to go to college. But they don't have any money. And for her, she wants to fight against Hitler because of what happened to Abram. And it'll help pay for school also. After deciding to join the Army, she has to get on the train to go down to Georgia for basic training. Now, segregation is still going on here, and once you cross the Mason-Dixie line, all of the white folk go up front, and of course, all of the black people are in the back. But we get introduced to some of the ladies that are going to be in her battalion with her. We got Johnny May, we got Lena, we got Dolores, and these women, they're all introducing themselves and how they actually got into the Army and what was their reasoning behind it, and what their trials and tribulations were to actually get here. Once they arrive down to Georgia, they're in the back of one of the trucks in the convoy from the train station. Now, all of these women, they have on their nicest clothes. They got on their furs, they got on their best Sunday hats, because this is how you dress back then. But once they get here, you separate the white women from the black women, and the drill sergeant tells them to get off the truck and hurry up. Now, luckily, there's some black privates, some men's down here, and they help the ladies out. And you know, the ladies ain't seen no guys in at least 24 hours, so they're a little excited. You know the fellas are, because they've been down there, and they sure can't look at the white women. Now, this gentleman here, Private Hugh Bell, you're gonna have to keep a watch out on him, because he had his eye on Lena from the moment she arrived, and she was the first person he helped off the back of the truck. How's it going? I'm Private Bell. I can show you around. Hey, sometimes you gotta pick and choose. Once the ladies do their in-processing, turn in their birth certificates, pick up their gear, they go into their barracks. Now, you're supposed to pick you out a bunk and get you a locker. When they get in here, room, attention! The lieutenant shouts it out, and in comes Captain Charity Adams. And she's letting all of the women know, while you're here, you're not better than the white folk, but you gotta be better than the white folk. You can't make any mistakes. We're here for one reason and one reason only. And when you hear attention, you line up, stand up straight, poke that butt in. You're in the Army now. We jump back to Washington, D.C., and we see Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, this is Franklin Roosevelt's wife, not to be confused with Teddy Roosevelt, who was the president back in the early 1900s. This is the second Roosevelt to become the president. But they see a lady sitting outside the White House, and she's just been sitting there and sitting there. Well, it turns out it's the lady that we seen earlier in the movie that was waiting on mail from her sons. One thing about the military, you're going to do PT. PT is physical training. More PT for you is a better day for me. You're going to get enough of that PT. But Captain Adams has them all out here, jumping jacks. We're going to do 50 in place. Make sure your arms are all the way up. You're jumping. No half-ass in it. She's letting them know there's no such thing as mediocre out here. There's going to be cameras on here, and there's going to be people watching us. And there's going to be people that want us to fail. Because not only are you black in the Army, you are a woman in the Army. So that's a double whammy, and they really want you to fail. So Captain Adams knows this, and she worked up to be a captain. So she's letting her privates, her trainees know this is what you're up against. Now the lady's been sitting outside. It started to rain. Eleanor goes to the window and she looks outside and she tells her butler, hey, grab my umbrella. Let me see what this lady is doing. She's sitting outside. Well, it turns out her sons went to the war 3 years ago and she hasn't heard anything from them. She's been sending letters, but nothing has returned. She can't get any information from the army and she just wants to know what is going on downrange. If I can just get one letter, something, what's going wrong? What's the problem? Is it the logistics? So this has Eleanor wondering, why aren't the families getting mail? Because that's very important. After crawling around in the mud, PT all day, training, learning this, learning that, you get some time to unwind in the barracks. And this is a true representation of what goes on after a long day. Everyone, you just showered, you're sitting around, you're talking to each other, you're figuring out who is who, learning why they join. Some people come for schooling, some people come to travel the world, some people come just to better themselves because they weren't doing anything. But everyone is in here, and whether you like someone or not, you grow to love them as your family members. To this day, I still talk to people I was in basic training with over 13 years ago. The infamous gas chamber. Now, in every branch, I assume that you go through the gas chamber. I know the Air Force, the Army, and the Marines you do. Navy, please let me know down below in the comments. Now, you know I have a bioenvironmental engineering background, so when it comes to gas masks, I am an expert. You can ask me about them. Now, if you can't don a gas mask, don means put on a gas mask, within 3 seconds, then more than likely you are going to contaminate the inside of your mask and you're probably not going to make it out of here. But you need to go in this chamber, and the ladies, they go in there and this is their first time. And of course, some people aren't going to get their mask on in time. This gas isn't deadly or anything, but it will make you cough and it will make your nose run and your eyes water. Now, Lena went in there and, well, she didn't get her mask on in time. So the gas got inside the mask and she put the mask on. So the gas is inside the mask and she's breathing it. She runs outside and she's coughing and she drops down to her knees. Trust me, this really happens in real life. You see it all the time. So the photographers, they're there. They're taking photos. Captain Adams is telling her to get up. But right now she's losing it. She doesn't know if she can go through with it. But she starts to visualize Abram here. And he's like, hey, you can put your mind to it. You can get through it. Who does this remind you of? And he starts talking about the white girl, Mary, that was hating in the beginning. Basically like, prove her wrong. You can do this. So this is what she needed to push her through. One thing we notice about Johnny May, she doesn't back down from anybody. She's going to say what she got to say. She's blunt. She's direct. Sometimes you need people like that, but then sometimes they do get annoying. And trust me, I was the dorm chief, so I was in charge of 48 other guys, and you had those type of people. But she starts messing with Lena, talking about Captain Adams don't like you, and you keep mentioning some guy's name, Abram. She's saying it in her sleep. We know that she's already daydreaming about him. But she snaps on Johnny May and say, hey, I may have not said anything, but don't you mention Abram's name. That's because Abram died and they were supposed to be together. Eleanor Roosevelt talked to her husband. And what do? They bring in 4-star General Holt, who's over the European theater, who's actually in charge of the war. And they also bring in Mary McLeod Bethune. Now, she's talking about Captain Adams and how she is capable of moving all of the mail that hasn't been delivered to people, because the morale for military members is your mail, being able to talk to your family members. So she says that Captain Adams has 3 majors, mathematics, physics, and Latin, and she's more than capable of getting the job done. But up to this point, there has been no black female battalions over in Europe. So Eleanor, she wants the mail to get to the people, and guess who's taking this job? The 688. The ladies don't know that they're about to be going to Europe, but they get to go to the movies on the weekend. And when they go out here, well, guess who's waiting? Private Hugh Bell. He said he's been waiting on Lena to come up here, and she's finally here. And she's saying she doesn't really want a relationship and she doesn't know what she can give to somebody. So he's saying, how about you just give me a friendship? Because I've been out there on the front lines and I know things can get crazy and I've seen some stuff. But as long as you're a friend of mine, maybe we could sit together and watch movies. Because while I'm out here delivering supplies, I just want someone to be able to talk to. Remember, this whole thing is centered around male. He can't talk to anyone back at home, and you need that woman presence to talk to. You can't just talk to your homeboys all day. Now they go into the movie theater, everyone's having a grand old time, but in comes a white captain and a white enlisted member. And they go straight up to the front and they see black people up there. But remember, this is a military installation. So Captain Adams stands up and say, we're not moving. I am a captain, I am an officer in the military. You will salute me. You are enlisted. And no, we're not moving to the back. We were here first, and this is the way it is. Now the white guy says, I would never salute you. And they try to walk off. But Captain Adams, she walks him down and lets him know she asserts that she is an officer and you will salute me. Captain Adams goes in there to report the two white members, but it falls on deaf ears. Now the colonel, he gives her orders to finally go to Europe, and he tells her, you're going to get on a plane and fly over there, and your soldiers, they're going to get on a ship and they'll be there on the 11th. So after this, she does get promoted to major, and her lieutenant is now a captain. When they get on the flight, they notice that all the other officers have two envelopes. One is the orders to get over there, and the second letter is for wartime orders. So when you delete your battalion out, you know what you're doing. She only gets one letter, and this letter is telling her that she's going to be in charge of doing all of the postal services that haven't been completed in the last 18 months. Once she gets there, she goes and talks to General Holt. Now, General Holt is the one that's going to give her orders in the direction that she needs to go in to take care of this mail. Now, we already hear him saying he doesn't know any black people that are smart, let alone a woman. So when she gets in here, he was in there talking to the president. He tells her, listen, you're going to be in this town, this village that just got bombed. This is where you're going to be staying. You'll have to put it together. And oh yeah, your ladies, when you guys arrive, they'll have to march to the city that they're going to stay in. There's not going to be any transport. They also don't have any escorts for the boat that they're riding on the way over to Europe from the United States. Now you hear them mention U-boats or submarines. They were supposed to be the most advanced at the time, and they were by the German Nazis. After a couple of drinks, Major Adams and Captain, they ride out to the hangar to see and assess how much mail is really out there. There's two white soldiers out there, and they hop out, and Captain tells them, you need to salute us. But when they open up the hangar, they see that it's mail stacked to the ceiling of a hangar. Now remember, these are airplane hangars, so that gives you an idea how big they are. And all of these hangars are full with mail from the last 18 months. That's 17 pieces of mail, whether it's a small letter or a big care package. And they only have 6 months to complete this. After the ladies arrive in France from the rough ride on that boat with no escort, they get the battalion in formation. Dress right, dress! Basically getting your alignment, in your columns. Now they start marching from the port all the way to where they're going to stay. And then they stop in front of the general and major. They give their salute, they render it, then it's eyes front, and it's back to marching. Headquarters for the ladies are going to be in an old abandoned school. Now remember, the general said that this area had just got bombed before they got there. There's no water, the rooms are terrible, there's rats, vermin everywhere. So the ladies not only have to work in this building, they have to make this place a home. There's no beds or anything. So they have to request everything that they're getting in. They have to hand clean everything, basically restoring this old school to make it livable for them to work and to sort out mail. Now I can only imagine setting this up, starting off from scratch. There's no idea how to do this. No one's been doing it for the last 2 years that the war has been going on. And you just send these women over here, open up shop, have to make this place livable. And now you're going through mail that's just been sitting. Some of it's molded, damaged by water. You can barely read it, chicken scratch, because these guys were downrange when they were writing these letters. So they're going through the mail and they're doing the best that they can. Now, Johnny May, she ends up dropping some dog tags out of one of the envelopes. Lena tells everyone to stop what they're doing and show a little bit of respect to the members that lost their lives, and those are their dog tags. Don't just throw them in a bucket. Let's pay the proper respects to these people. But this makes her cry and go into the bathroom. Now all the girls are looking at Johnny May like, look what you done did. But they go in there and they talk to Lena, and this is when they find out that Abram, the name that she's been saying in her sleep all night, is actually the guy that she was quote unquote dating. Well, they weren't dating at that moment, but he said he was coming back for her. So now they're all seeing why that name hit so hard whenever Johnny May was talking about it. Now, of course, they're all trying to console her and make sure that she's all right. Major Adam comes in to talk to her. She tells all the other ladies to get back to work. Now, Lena, she's crying and she thinks that Major doesn't like her because she already has 2 strikes. 3 strikes, you're out the army. But you gotta realize, most of these instructors, they don't hate you. They're just trying to push you because they know you can do better. And that's what Major Adam says. I didn't hate you. I was just trying to push you to strive to be better. Now she realizes that there's a connection between the dog tags and Lena, and she's saying, listen, I believe you can do the work. And she knows that you may have lost somebody. I believe you can do the work, and that's why I kept you here. Yeah, I was hard on you, but I know you're capable of doing it. So basically, she's giving her that motivation, but she also tells her, now let's get back to work, because remember, if they don't complete this in 6 months, that's everybody's job. Now from here, it turns out Captain has a letter. Captain takes it to Major Adams, and she's like, look, read this. So Major Adams starts reading it. And what it is, General Halt is writing letters saying 54,000 pieces of mail got undelivered because it got sent back for whatever reason. They couldn't read it or something, but basically saying that the ladies aren't doing a good job. So the colonel that she works up under, she's like, man, we're doing the best we can, but our living conditions are horrible. We're trying to make it happen. So at this point, they're already knowing that the odds are going to be against them. But now it's even tougher because people are writing letters up the chain of command to try to get this whole thing dissolved. On top of them having to do all of the mail, on the weekends, they sent the letter and told the major, you also have to entertain the military members, the men. So you see it says the WAC, the Women's Army Corps, they're welcoming the men in to get the morale up because one, they ain't getting no mail. And of course, if you want them to work hard, you put some women around them, you're going to see guys start to show out. Now, you got to remember, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. I'm talking about they going crazy in here. This is back when partying was partying. No moonshine. This ain't Ray's Boom Boom Room, but it's a grand old time. You had to have some real dance moves back then. It wasn't no standing against the wall. If you wanted to get you a nice woman, you better have some dance moves. Now, we know Bell, he is persistent. He is trying to stay on her. He was supposed to get married, but he told her he didn't get married. He ended up coming to war, and we know he's been on the front lines. He didn't get married because he seen her, and that changed his mind. Now, this brother is starving. This brother is thirsty, but he tells her again, listen, I've been on the front line and I done seen some things, but you tell me something about you and I'll continue to tell you something about me. So he's like, let's just be friends. That's all I need. Just someone I can talk to. Whenever I come back on the weekends, you and I, we can just chat it up. So she's crying and he's crying because they're at real war. This isn't like today where you might get deployed and your deployment is like a vacation. No. This is real deal. And at any given moment, there could be a flyover, a bombing, a raiding, anything. Major Adams' colonel finally shows up. And when he gets here, he's upset. And the reason he's upset is because his mail just got to him and they've been here for a while. So what he does is go over to Major. He's talking about whose initials are JBM. And we know that's Johnny May. So he goes over to Johnny May and says, are you stupid? Are you dumb? Can you not read? Do you not see that this is my name? It needs to be sent to me. So he's calling her out in front of everybody. And if you know about the military, there's nothing you can say. You hear court-martial getting mentioned a lot. If you get court-martial, I beat 2 of them. They're kind of tough to beat, but if you get you a real lawyer, you'll be all right. But if you're downrange, it's a little tougher. But a court-martial is basically you go to military court. Now, military court is on the same level as a federal court because you'll go to federal prison if you're found guilty of it. So basically, he's upset that his mail isn't getting there. But these ladies, no one gave them any instruction on how to do this. Now, Major Adams is asking all of the ladies, all right, what can we do to make this more efficient? Because right now they're coming down and they want us to fail. So some people are good with crossword puzzles. So they're looking at the names and trying to piece them together. Some lady, she used to work in fabric, so she knows where this fabric came from. They trace it back to where it was sent from, which will give them more of an indication of the names. And right now they're just taking everyone's talents that they use prior to joining the military and applying it to everyday situation. Now, when you're in the military, when you go to different bases, you go overseas, you start to realize that everything that you trained with, you might not necessarily have it. So you have to always adapt, and that's what they're doing. They send in a chaplain. Now, this chaplain has a prayer on Sunday, but he's talking about the evil within. And he's talking about this could be the devil in the man form or a woman form. He's basically hinting at Major Adams, because what they're doing is spying on her and basically trying to dismember this whole battalion, because they don't want to see any black people, let alone a black woman or black women, succeed. So he's directing it to her, and everyone else is just listening, and they're kind of catching on. But Major Adams, she's like, you know what? We're not doing this, because we're doing the best that we can to the best of our ability. Major Adams ends up telling the chaplain, you got to leave. You ain't got to go home, but you're leaving here. So they kick him out. And when she goes back outside, none of the women are realizing that it sounds like a plane is flying over. Now, this means that there's a bombing going on. So she rings the bell and everyone goes in the hall like a tornado drill. And at this point, you just got to wish for the best. You just got to sit in the hall. You got to tough it out. Now, we have people deployed to like Turkey, because I'm in the Air Force. Well, I was in the Air Force. And you'll have mortars and everything hitting the base. That's just a part of war. But they got to get in that hallway and do something. The ladies had strict orders. This is your route that you're going to go from the hangars to the school and drop off the mail. Now, there was a roadblock on the road, and the ladies, they tried to take a detour. And this is why they tell you to stay on the path that was provided to you. They turn left and they end up stopping on the UXB, an unexploded bomb. Now, when they stop there, they tell the ladies in the back to hop out. And what they're going to do is try to slowly jump out the truck before it explodes. Now, these things are pressure sensitive. So even a little 5-pound movement can set this thing off. The two ladies in the back, they make it out, but the driver and the passenger, before they could jump out, boom, RIP. The two ladies are unalive, but of course we know General Halt, they're not trying to pay for the proper burial. So the ladies put all their money together and they actually go and bury the two ladies in the cemetery with everybody else, Vera and Inez. But while they're here, they also know that Lena, her boyfriend Abram, he may have passed. So Major Adams tells her, if you know what unit he was in and when he died, you can go and look for his cross. Lena goes over and finds his cross, but it's a Star of David because he was Jewish, and it gives the day that he passed. But now she has a little flashback, and we see the moment that he was in the plane, he put that letter in his pocket because he knew that this is probably going to be his last day. He went and made his attack before he getting shot down and unalive. Now she's here crying in Private Hall. He's here waiting on her because someone needs to bring her back to base. But all Abram said in the letter was, promise me that you'll continue to laugh and live life. General Halt shows up. He's been trying to cancel this whole battalion and postal service since we've been introduced to him. Now he comes here to do an inspection. Now there's ladies that are sleeping because they're on 24-hour shifts. There's ladies that are showering. They put together a hair salon so the ladies can have their hair done, to be in regulations, to be in the uniform. He doesn't like any of that. So when he goes in here, he's looking for something else to complain about the packages being molded, about some of the mail being open. He's talking about, you're reading these white men mail. This stuff is private. I'm shutting this whole thing down. You're incompetent. You can't read. But we get a change of events for Major Adams. All of the ladies applied Major Adams because she stood up to a general. Now, let me tell you, it takes a lot of courage to stand up to a general. Now, she is an officer, but a 3-star, you don't talk back to them. It's just, yes, sir, no, sir, I'll get it done, sir. But she told him, the living conditions are terrible. You wanted us to fail. We're doing everything we can to make this happen. And for you to come in here and discredit my women, we can't stand for that. So over my dead body, you're going to cancel this mission. So everyone is cheering for her. They stop working. And this right here, was a real life moment right here. Now, I don't know how it happened in real life, but to stand up to a 3-star general, listen, I've stood up to majors. I didn't really go into the lieutenant colonel and above, but I've had what I had to say to majors and captains. But a general, man, you got to applaud them. She stood up for these women. And sure enough, the ladies, they got things together. General Holt's trying to call, yeah, this postal stuff, cancel that. Truman is the president now. Roosevelt, RIP to him. But he's like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. But he looked outside his window, and it turns out all of the veterans, all of the members that got shot, they're receiving mail. People downrange are receiving mail, all off the backs of Major Adams in the 6th Battalion. Man, I'm telling you, that's a sweet thing to finally get some mail. I remember my first piece of mail in basic training. It took me 3 weeks, but man, it was worth the wait. The ladies, they successfully completed their mission. They had 17 million parcels, 17 million pieces of mail, and they got it done in 90 days compared to the 6 months that they were allotted. So when they were leaving, you see all of the white soldiers, they're saluting, because regardless of who you are, you need that family interaction. You need that homegrown love to either read to or read from or send a message to. Then we get to hear from the real Lena Derricott. Now, she was 100 years old when she was reading this, and I think it was a couple years back. But they did such a good job on that 17 million pieces of mail. They sent them to another part of France to do another backlog. And they got the highest recognition. Michelle Obama actually congratulated them and recognized them. Remember, they were the first and only all-black woman battalion in World War II. Here's one of the members, Private First Class Dolores L. Rudock, 1923 to 2021. Private Ann Mae Wilson Robertson, born 1924, so I'm assuming she's still alive as of currently. She got a nice little thing of medals. Private First Class Romay C. Johnson Davis, born 1919. All right, that's a nice picture there. Major Fanny Griffin McClendon, born 1920. All right, got the American flag. Nice. On April 27, 2023, U.S. Army Base Fort Lee, named after the Civil War Confederate general, was named Fort Gregg Adams in honor of 2 black U.S. Army pioneers, Lieutenant General Arthur Gregg and Lieutenant Colonel Charity Adams. So she got promoted one more time to Lieutenant Colonel. Man, that's amazing there. All right, there you go. The 688. Let me know what you think about it. Did you know anything about the first and only all-black woman battalion that went and served during World War II? Now, they didn't see any action, but they were still in World War II. They still went through the traumas of being away from their families, the potential bombings. So let me know what you think about this. I will be breaking down the main characters and going over their actual achievements and everything that they did compared to their character. So make sure you tune in for that. I'm Moedotj. If you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'm on that road to 75,000 subscribers. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching. I'm out.
Jimmy on the beat, boy.